Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshvari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai. We'll continue with chapter 34 from the Devi Bhagavatam retold by Ramesh Menon. King Janamejaya now asked, "Tell me about the Tirthas, Muni. Which are they? What does it profit a man to bathe in them?" Among rivers, the Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Narmada, Gandaki, Sindhu, Tamasa, Gomati, Kaveri, Chandrabhaga, Vetravati, Charmanvata, Saruya, Tapi, and Savramati. Indeed, any river that flows into the ocean is sacred, for she is an amsa of the Devi Bhagavati. In all the months except Shravana and Bhadra, the rivers of the earth wash away man's sins. In those 2 months, the rivers bear the waters of the monsoon upon them in the tide. The other great tirthas of Bharatvarsha, O king, are Pushkara, Kurukshetra, Dharmavana, Prabhasa, Prayaga, Naimisavana, and Abudabana. Then there are the mountains. Srisaila, Sumara, Gandhamandara are the holiest of them, though every mountain is said to be permeated with Brahman and the Devi's grace. Of lakes, Mansarava, Bindusaras, and Aksoda are the most sacred, though again, every precious mountain lake has its blessings to bear. All these tirthas, O king, are considered sacred by the rishis of the earth, but the tirtha they all agree is more holy than any other is Bhadra Kasarama, where Narayana sat in tapasya in ancient times. All the tirthas purify a tirtha yatri to some extent, but true chitta shuddhi, the final purification, can only be had if a man bathes in the Jnana Ganga, the river of the spirit that flows within his own heart. In the Kali Yuga, a bhakta can realize that most sacred rivers only be graced by worshipping the Devi Bhagavati or his chosen Ishta Devata. Grace is the only path to the salvation in the Kali Yuga. Janamejaya then said, "Muni, I have heard of an enmity between the ancient king Nima and the Rishi Vasishtha, who was the Brahma's own son, born of the Creator's pristine thought. I have also heard that Vasishtha was once Nimi's guru. What happened between them?" Vedavyasa answered, Nimi was a sage and a just kshatriya, a son of King Ishvaku of old. One day he conceived the ambitious plan to build a great city quite near the Muni Gautama's ashram and to conduct a deep yagya there. His father Ishvaku approved of his son's grandiose plan, and soon Nimi set about collecting all he needed for his sacrifice. He gathered many wise and prominent rishis around him. Bhrigu, Angiras, Vamadeva, Gautama, Vasishtha, Pulasta, Pulaha, Kratu, and many others. However, of the Vedas, knowers of the Vedas, and incalculably holy men. Now Vasishtha has his own guru, and Nimi said to him, now Vasishtha was his own guru. And Nimi said to him, I want to perform a yagya such as the earth has never seen before. I want to perform a yagya of 5,000 years. Guru, you must be the head of this yagya. Vasishtha said, Indra has called me to be his priest at a 500-year yagya he plans. I have already given my word to the king of the Devas. When I finish with Indra's sacrifice, I'll gladly attend to yours. But Nimi said, I have already gathered the other munis. I have collected everything I need for my yagya, the rice and ghee, the wood, and the golden vessels. We have decided upon the place where the yagya will be held, and even the muhurta for us to begin. How can I wait 500 years for you, Vasishtha? You are the Kal Guru of our royal house. How can you go elsewhere for another yagya when we have need of you here? Vasishtha did not answer the priest at once, but said he needed some time to think the matter over. Yet the next day, without telling Nimi, the rishi went away to Devaloka to sit over Indra's sacrifice. It was not an honor he would miss, and he had given the Deva his word. He believed Nimi would change his mind and wait for him to return. But Nimi had set his heart on this yagya. When he found Vasishtha had left, he asked Gautama to be the chief priest. Nimi had himself crowned king and sacrificer in the new city, and then began his yagya beside the ocean in a very vast yagashala. Nimi gave generous gold and jewels as dakshina to the munis who sat at his sacrifice, and the holy ones were well satisfied. Those were, of course, times when kings of the earth were long-lived and altogether godlike. 500 years of the 5,000 years went by, and Nimi planned for his yagya passed, and Vasishtha returned to the earth after performing Indra's yagya in heaven. Vasishtha came to see Nimi. The king's servants would not rouse their lord, and the rishi was kept waiting for an hour. Meanwhile, he also heard that Nimi had begun his sacrifice with Gautama as his priest. Trembling with rage, Vasishtha cursed Nimi. You have turned your back on me, your Kala Guru. You have bought yourself a priest with wealth. I curse you, Nimi. You will lose your body for what you have done. Nimi folded his hand to Vasishtha humbly when he saw him and said without rancor, Guru, I am your Yajamana. I asked you repeatedly to be my chief priest at my yagya. You are the Kal Guru of our family, yet you chose to desert me and sit over Indra's yagya instead. Now, my lord, you seek to curse me for doing what I could not help. All the other munis had already gathered for my yagya. How could I turn them away without their cursing me? You are my guru. You should have understood my predicament. But now that you have cursed me, for no fault of mine, I too curse you, O son of Brahma. Anger flashed in Nimi's eyes. This form of yours, Vasishtha, is full of rage that you can hardly control. Wrath is your master, not reason. I curse you that this body of yours falls away from you. Nimi had great power in those days from his long yagya and from his lordship over the earth. Vasishtha knew the king's curse would not fail to have effect. In some panic, the Muni fled to his father Brahma for sanctuary. Even before he arrived at Brahma's, Vasishtha felt his body fall away from him into chasmal space. He arrived disembodied in Brahmaloka and cried to his father, "Now what shall I do, father? Nimi's curse has taken my body from me. How shall I have another body and still keep the knowledge that is mine? If I am born of a woman's womb, I will forget all that I know. Yet if I don't have a body, how will I live among men and be of some use to the world?" Brahma seemed to consider his son's predicament for a moment, then said, "Take yourself to Varuna's abode, enter his very seed subtly, and remain there, quiet, without his knowing you dwell in him. You shall indeed have a body again, and keep your store of knowledge as well. Go now, all will be well again, but learn a lesson from this, my son." The chastened Vasishtha said, "Anger will not rule me again, father." Vasishtha then flew down to the world and into Varuna's realm below the waves. Suddenly he this disembodied Muni went and so entered Varuna's body and his seed. He remained there in Dhyan for a very long time. An age passed, and one day the Apsara Urvasi came with some Sakis to the world to bathe in the sea. She shed her fine garments on a silvery beach under a streaming moon, and laughing in delight entered the water with her companions. At once Varuna, lord of the sea, grew sensible of her in his palace below the waves, for that Deva is aware of all things that touch his waters. He caressed the naked Apsara with a gentle swell, and tumultuous excitement gripped him. Delectable Urvasi also felt a tidal desire take hold of her. Soon Varuna was past all control, and in his wondrous submarine palace, he ejaculated helplessly into a crystal jar he found. His seed spurted from him, golden and luminous, and with it out flew the Muni Vasishtha. In a moment, as Varuna watched in astonishment, 2 brilliant rishis stood forth from his semen. The crystal jar fell in silvery dust around them. The first of these munis was the great Agastya, and the other was Vasishtha, returned with a new body after Nimi's curse. Agastya Muni went directly to the Himalayas to sit in tapasya for an age. Vasishtha went back to Ishvaku and became Kalaguru to the royal house again. It is thus that both those rishis are called Maitra Varunis, Varuna's sons. Janamejaya wanted to know what happened then to the king Nimi. Did he also get his body back? No, only Vasishtha did, Vedavyasa said. When the priests at Nimi's yaga heard about Vasishtha's curse, they continued to keep life in Nimi's body with the most arcane and powerful mantras, so that the great sacrifice could be completed. It is told that when Nimi's yaga was fulfilled in 5,000 years, the Devas came to the chamber where the king now lay in exhaustion bordering on death. They said to Nimi, "Lord of the yagya, we are pleased with your sacrifice. Name any boon you want, and it shall be yours. Tell us what manner of body you wish to have from now, a human one or a Deva's." Nimi managed to smile, and he spoke softly to the Devas. "I have no desire to have another body, which can die at any time. No, let me live as the spirit above the eyes of all living creatures." The Deva said, "The Devi Bhagavati is pleased with your yagya. Ask her for this boon, for only she can grant it." Nimi thought of the Devi, and she appeared before him, even as he drew his last breath for his body to fall away from him. Bhagavati shone like 1,000 suns, and she was the embodiment of beauty and cast bliss all around her, as if it were her shadow. In ecstasy, Nimi said, "Mother of the worlds, give me the final beatitude, pure and simple, by which I may be free. Also, let me live above the eyes of every living being and help show them the way to moksha." The Devi smiled and said, "So be it, O king. When you When your karma is fulfilled, you shall have moksha. Then on, be as Vayu and dwell above every living creature's eyes and shine as the light of knowledge in them. Let all the living take thought, and when they do let their eyes blink, as they have not done so before, but only the beings of the earth shall blink their eyes. The Devas shall still not blink, but gaze steadily on all things. The goddess seemed to grow thoughtful for a moment. Then she said, "But you must have a son, Nimi, to sit upon your throne when you are gone." With that she vanished. The king could not for the life of him imagine how he could have a son now when his spirit was leaving his body. The Brahmanas laid King Nimi out in state to die, and they covered him with fragrant logs and wood. The king did not breathe anymore. They began to churn his body with an Arani branch, chanting occult mantras all the while. Suddenly, a resplendent youth sprang forth from Nimi's body. He resembled Nimi in every feature and was as bright as that great king had been. And when he appeared, Nimi's body vanished as if it had never existed, melting away before the Brahmana's eyes by Vasista's curse. That prince was called Mithi. In time, he built a splendid city on the banks of the Ganges, and it was called Matila. Nimi's spirit, it is told, pervaded all that land. He had lost his body and was known as Vidya, and so was his kingdom, and every king who sat on the throne of Matila from then on. They were also known as Janaka, and were all realized souls, Raja Rishis. Then on, great Nimi of the unrivaled Yagya resides between the eyebrows of every living creature on earth as a subtle guru. Janamejaya said, "My lord, Vasista was Brahma's own son, and he was Nimi's Kalaguru. Nimi performed such profound yagyas. Still, they were both prey to anger and could not forgive each other. One cursed his Yagyamana and the other his guru." Vyasa said, smiling, "Who in all the three worlds has conquered anger? I tell you, O king, not Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva is a perfect master of wrath. The gunas sway all beings, from the gods down to the lowest beast. Only the Nirguna Brahman, the eternal unmanifest spirit, is truly above the passions. So also the Parashakti, the Divine Mother. Only the man who realizes that primal truth shall find liberation. He shall be set free from the circle of birth and death and the realms of samsara." Jai Mahamaya ki, Jai Vishveshwari Mata ki, Jai Bole Baba ki, Jai.